And our next amazing speaker is Dr. Joanne Kong, PhD, author, educator. Dr. Joanne Kong has been praised as one of today's most compelling vegan advocates. Her TEDx talk, The Power of Plant-Based Eating, has over 1 million views on YouTube. She has appeared at numerous conferences and festivals, including the North American Veg Society Summerfest, National Animal Rights Day, Veg Fest Colorado, Oakland Veg Fest, Sedona Veg Fest, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Plant-Based Climate Summit, and many others. Her advocacy has been recognized around the world with international talks in Italy, Spain, Germany, Norway, Canada, and a 3-week tour of India. Dr. Kong is author of If You've Ever Loved an Animal, Go Vegan. She is editor of Vegan Voices, essays by inspiring change makers, and her new book, Vegan Made Easy, a practical guide to plant-based living. You can purchase her book at her booth today. She appears in the major documentary, Eating Our Way to Extinction. In her advocacy activities, Dr. Kong draws upon a diversity of skills as a writer, speaker, and creative artist, and performs in the duo Vegan Virtuosi with Salius and vegan advocate Christoph Wagner. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, C.B. It's so great to be here. I think the last time I spoke here was before the pandemic, so it's always great to be back here, and what a great turnout at the Veg Fest today. Are you all having a good time? Great, yeah. So I'm just curious, how many of you are exploring veganism? Trying it out? Fantastic. And how many of you are already vegan? Terrific. Yeah, so I think, at these kinds of events, whether you're vegan or not, you're here to learn. And I think that kind of speaks to the first thing I want to point out is that everyone's vegan journey is unique. Everybody has different reasons for wanting to explore plant-based eating. It might be for health, it might be for the animals, or maybe you had a moment of connection with your pet and decided, gee, a pig or a cow really isn't that different from my beloved dog. Or it might be because a family member has some challenging health problems. The truth is that each of us have our own unique path, and there's not one right way to do it. And I always say that for starting out, it's a good idea to kind of reflect and look back upon your own life, because we're all creatures of habit, right? I mean, we learned a lot about our food eating habits from growing up, what our parents fed us, and I didn't go vegetarian until, I guess I was a grad student in college, and I happened to pick up a book called Animal Factories by Peter Singer and Jim Mason that detailed what happens to animals in slaughterhouses, and it had black and white pictures. But I had never, ever thought about the food on my plate and who it was. And I always recount that story because it shows that we're kind of in this stream of living that we have inherited through our families. So it's never about judging someone like, gee, how come you're not vegan? How come you took so long to go vegan? We all have our own unique family backgrounds, religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. That's why it's so important to go about, as you explore this, with a good dose of optimism and patience. So ask yourself, why do I want to go vegan? What benefits do I hope to gain? Maybe there's some aspects of your current diet that you want to change. And to make it a little bit more interactive, are any of you interested in plant-based eating because of a health issue, or you want to try to cut back on a certain food? I'm just curious. I see you shaking your head. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else, any particular food you're trying to cut back on? Potato chips. Hey, potato chips are vegan. Did you know that? So are Oreos. Yeah, but it is a good idea to cut back on potato chips. Anyone else? Cheese, okay. You know, when vegan cheeses first started coming out, it's like, yuck. They just tasted like rubber. But nowadays, Miyoko's cheeses, you know, there are so many different kinds of plant-based cheeses out there. Thank goodness they've gotten a lot better. And also, what challenges might you expect? You know, whether challenges with yourself, with food preparation, they may be social challenges. So kind of getting a baseline exploration of what going plant-based might mean for you. And a good way to begin is you already eat many vegan foods. Like those of you that are vegan now, before you were vegan, what are some foods that everybody eats that are already vegan? What? Fruits? Vegetables? Beans? Salads? Yeah, right. So you can come up with a pretty large list. So it's kind of like that idea of the glass half full or half empty. It's like, hey, I'm already partly there. So that going plant-based, it's not like this kind of special diet. Every once in a while you hear about the newest fad diet where you have to buy all these special ingredients, you have to buy all these fancy recipes. Somehow it's easy to think that vegan is just another one of those things where it's a difficult diet, when actually it's more about simplification than anything. So, you know, jotting down a list of what you already eat, that's vegan. And here are just some pictures of some of the food items we already talked about. The next step is really important, and that's to go at your own pace. Remember, this is not some kind of a race. You're not competing against anybody else. Everybody has their own lifestyle and challenges they're facing. Some people decide they're just going to kind of gradually do it and just see what happens. Others might do it overnight, like I went vegetarian overnight, and then 12 years ago, I went vegan overnight. For some people, maybe you do it over a month. It's really important to see what's realistic. And again, it's, you know, the idea that basically what you're doing is you're simply adding more plant-based foods to what you already eat. I have an advocate, vegan advocate friend in India. His name is Shankar Narayan, and he has this great saying. We went on tour throughout India several years ago. He said, veganism is not a destination, it's a journey. And that's really important to remember, because oftentimes we're replacing lifelong food habits with new ones, and see it as a journey of exploration and even self-discovery. Setting the stage. The fact that you're here at the World Veg Fest today shows you're already doing that. I am a college professor, so I'm all about educating. So with the internet, with books, documentaries, websites, podcasts, all the amazing resources out there, this is an exciting time to learn a new subject. You're going to educate yourself and do all the groundwork and say, hey, what is it about animal products and why I shouldn't eat them? Or who is this Dr. Neil Barnard I keep hearing about? Really do the groundwork, and it's really fun to learn all of this information. I even put together, I've got a few ringed binders, and I kind of take notes. I love taking notes. So I'll have different areas of the binder, one about health and nutrition, another one about animal rights, another one about climate, another one about the food industry, another one about disease prevention. And I take notes, you know, from important conferences or speeches I hear, so that I'm constantly learning. You can even have what I call a recipe journal, where you discover some really great recipes and you want to put them in your notebook, or you may have a digital notebook that you put them in. And I think it's important because this is such a personal journey. Oftentimes people will find it's not just about what you're putting in your body, it's other things as well. And you may find aspects of your mental ability or your emotional state or even your spirituality change. And it's nice to reflect and journal and write those things down. So here's another interactive moment. For those of you that went vegan, I'm curious if any of you would like to talk about what other changes you noticed with yourself other than just better health. Who noticed something else as you went further in your journey? Anybody out there? Yes.
Well, I was a vegetarian for about 15 years.
Okay.
And then I met a woman who was vegan.
Ah,
And so it kind of, the transition going vegan was pretty easy with her help.
yes.
But what I noticed was that the less, and I really wasn't eating when I was eating like goat cheese, just a few things. There wasn't any dairy. But what I noticed was the things that I was eating, when I would try them again a little bit later, I completely lost my taste for them. They just didn't taste good. They didn't feel right in my body.
You mean the animal products?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After I had let them go, and it's still kind of the same way now.
Right, very interesting. Those of you who are at the tail end of the previous talk where she was talking about cortisol, when the animal is slaughtered, there are chemical releases that happen, and they are chemically, you can actually measure them. And it's not only the cortisol, which is a stress hormone, but also the fact that this animal went through such a horrific death. And I don't believe there's any way that some of that cannot be transferred to you as someone who eats it. I always tell a story. I traveled throughout India, and I was leading a lot of discussion groups, and there was a woman that recently had gone vegan, and one evening with her family, and she hadn't realized it, she actually had ingested some animal flesh. And later that night, she woke up, and she not only experienced abdominal pain, but she started weeping uncontrollably. She felt that she was in touch with the suffering that that animal went through. So those of you that do go vegan, really, I think it's important to not only note the physical changes you go through, but how you see yourself changing as a person. A lot of people find that it's not only about health, it touches upon so many aspects of our lives. Okay, and how many of you belong to meetup groups? There's so many of those out there. There's podcasts, there's veg fests like this one. There are also other support programs such as Challenge 22. There's the PCRM 21-Day Vegan Kickstart. There's Peace Advocacy Group. There's a lot of groups out there that actually offer mentoring or one-on-one help if you need help with recipes, that sort of thing. Scour the internet. There's so many ways that you can find help. Like, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. We have Veg Society of Richmond, and we get together once a month, and it's a great way. We share recipes, we have a topic of discussion, and it's a great way to connect with like-minded people and help you on your journey. So I oftentimes say, if you're not sure if you really want to go vegan, to give yourself a chance and do like a 2 to 3 week exploration of vegan dishes. And your goal would be during those 2 or 3 weeks, come up with 12 different plant-based dishes. And this could be very easy. For instance, start with oatmeal. What are all the things you could add to oatmeal that will make it tasty vegan? Any ideas? Raisins. Peanut butter, blueberries, bananas, flax seeds. Yeah, you can add, I have a friend that adds beans to his oatmeal. I mean, you can make oatmeal, dates. Strawberries, yes, just about any fruit imaginable. Plant-based milk. Pasta, it's real easy to find recipes that are vegan, that are pasta dishes. So come up with 12 dishes during those 2 to 3 weeks to kind of show yourself, hey, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And then this is really important, veganize. So the way to do this is think up a favorite meat-based food that you always loved. What might that be? Hamburgers, okay. Type in hamburgers, you do a Google search, hamburgers, veganize, and you'll come up with all kinds of recipes for black bean burgers, chili burgers, using some of these meat substitutes, although you have to be careful of salt, oil, and sugar that you're getting one that's healthier than others. Or like mac and cheese. There's ways to do mac and cheese or beef stroganoff in ways that are vegan. So just kind of Googling around. It's amazing what you can find. And of course, all the cookbooks that are out there. I even find I don't think I've bought a cookbook in a long time because you can just find everything online now. And you can even Google stuff like, let's say, pesto. How many of you love pesto? Type in pesto oil-free vegan, and you'll find recipes there. You don't have to use oil in pesto. Or maybe you are on a gluten-free diet, or maybe you want no salt, or maybe you're looking for a certain kind of ingredient. Google it and you will find it. Okay, so usually I recommend that if you're more serious about going vegan, to try to spread it out over a month, because 3 to 4 weeks is a good time period to acclimatize your taste buds to being in a different kind of taste sensation, and it's a good length of time to get used to a new habit. So one way, there are different ways to do it, but one way would be week 1, you make it a goal to make all your breakfast meals plant-based, which is pretty easy to do. And then week 2, in addition to breakfast, make all your lunches plant-based. Then in week 3, you add plant-based dinner meals every day. And then by the end of week 4, you should reach the point at which all your meals will be vegan. Have any of you tried a certain way of going about this over a month? I'm just curious. How did you do it?
Really, it was just jumping in.
You just jumped in. Yeah, and you can do it that way too. Yeah.
Just jumping in, and also I wouldn't say overwhelming, but just getting a lot of information.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it's not a race. You don't have to set a deadline. Just go easy with it. Giving yourself grace. I love that. That's a great way to put it. And another way some people will do it, they'll say, we've all heard of, meatless Mondays. Start by choosing a day of the week and then gradually add on another day of the week. Some people also will do it by cutting out gradually certain ingredients. Have any of you done it that way? Yeah, tell us about what you did.
It was just the things that I would have in my fridge. So I was vegetarian before anyway, and just gradually replacing the butter, the grated cheese. And then it was just I'm just eating the same things, but I just know that the ingredients are plant-based. So
Right.
it's really easy. And simplify as well, like you said. You go to the grocery store and you're that aisle is just not for me. And you go to the ones that are,
Yeah.
and you get out quickly, and
Right.
gradually it's just life and pretty easy.
Yeah, I've run into quite a few people that say that the first thing they gave up was beef, and then maybe they give up fish, so you can do it by the ingredient as well. Okay, so a little bit about meal planning. Again, a lot of people kind of get this idea that, oh gosh, I gotta count calories. I have to figure out exactly how many servings, how many ounces. You really don't have to do that. If you see this plate here, it comes from a great website called Pickup Limes. And it basically shows you that half of what you ought to be eating is vegetables and fruits. A quarter should be your grains and starches, and a quarter should be proteins. So that could break down into, say, 3 or 4 servings of vegetables every day, 3 servings of fruit every day, maybe 2 servings of grains and starches, and 2 servings of proteins. So you can see what all the various ingredients are there. Because, how many of you have heard this saying that we have the standard American diet, also known as SAD? And why is it so sad? Well, here's why. If you look at this, it may be kind of hard to read this, but 30% of your typical American's diet is made up of animal products. 55% is processed foods. So we're talking 85% of the typical American diet is animal products and processed foods. Only about 1/10 of the US population is eating enough vegetables, fruits, nuts, and beans. And only 4% are getting enough whole grains. So that kind of tells you the state of our diet. And it's no wonder that I think the latest statistics are that something like 75% of Americans are obese. That's really pretty frightening, and especially young people as well. So obviously we need to do a nice turnaround of this pie chart here. Okay, some helpful food tips. Any ideas from any of you? Like when you're going shopping, what are some sort of guiding principles? Right, can you explain what that means? Have any of you not heard of that? When you go to the grocery store, stay on the outside, can you?
Just all the processed stuff is in the middle, like, because it's shelf stable. So if you just deal with produce, essentially, like, I don't do like dairy or anything anymore, but like, you know, that's where everything that came from somewhere not a plant. Like,
Yeah.
not a plant.
Right, yeah. Good, so that essentially means you want to buy food in as close to its natural state as possible. That means, yes, you buy a banana, you buy a piece of broccoli, you buy an onion. What can be simpler than that, right? Because we want to minimize unhealthy, ultra-processed foods. There's another saying called eat the rainbow. Have any of you heard of that? When you go to the produce section, you see all the different colors, your reds, your oranges, reds, you know, different varieties of sweet potatoes, yams. All of those different colors stand for and represent all of the amazing, amazing chemicals that plants give to us, phytocompounds as they're called, antioxidants, flavonoids, beta-carotenoids, all of these substances that are so, so healthy for the body. So that's a really good general tip too. Don't just eat, I mean, I know I love broccoli too, but don't just eat broccoli and onions. You know, throw together a salad and throw all the more different colors you can put into your vegan diet, the better. Farmer's market, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, all the colors you see. And it just, you know, it gets you excited, you know, when you see all of those great plant foods. A couple other recommendations throughout the week. Figure out how you can use an ingredient in more than one dish. So say you got your Instapot out and you made a bunch of beans. You could use the beans in a chili. You could use them in a soup. You could use them in a burrito. Another thing to do is to cook in large quantities and freeze. Then you're not constantly having to think, oh, what am I going to make tonight for dinner? You know, you have lots of frozen stuff to choose from, and of course leftovers as well. Also, you know, these days we're, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, here, yeah. We already talked about oatmeal, about all the amazing things you can throw in them, and with salads, this is an example of the rainbow. I mean, look at all of these amazing ingredients. I know vegans are sort of the butt of jokes saying, oh, you only eat salads. But, you know, salads are really an amazing way to get a lot of variety of plant nutrients. I mean, look at all the ingredients here. We have your greens, we have mushrooms, cabbage, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, avocado, tomatoes, nuts, and you can drizzle a plant-based non-oil salad dressing as well we'll get to oil in a little bit. And also throw a bunch of seeds on. There's lots of ways to do it. Soups and stews are great ways to throw a lot of your servings in. Like, what kind of stews do you guys make? Any ideas? Like, yeah. Yeah. Celery. Good. Fantastic. Yeah. Potatoes, carrots, drizzle some herbs over it. You can make your own veggie stock. So stews and soups are a great way to cook large quantities of great plant-based food. How many of you love to make Buddha bowls or monk bowls, as they're called? And a lot of, these restaurants now are popping up. Like Kava is one. Is there one in San Francisco? One of these places where you assemble your own bowl and you pick a protein and you pick a vegetable. Yeah, what is it out here? Oh, yeah, yeah. And what I've even done sometimes, if I've gone to one of those places, I'll take a menu home and use that, as a recipe and make my own Buddha bowls. And they don't take a lot of time to put together. Another thing you can do is make a lot of your ingredients homemade. That way they're fresh. They're not going to have a lot of extra salt and sugar. You can make hummus very easily at home with a food processor. Nut butters you can make, like I throw almonds in a food processor, throw in some flax and chia, which are great for your omega-3s. For pasta sauces, the thing about pasta sauces is the jarred pasta sauces have a lot of, oil. Like, I'm always distressed when I turn over and look at the back of the jar of pasta sauce and the sodium is like 27%. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. So I'll just get a big can, like the 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, throw it in the pot, throw in onions, throw in mushrooms, throw in some nutritional yeast. Voila, you have your pasta sauce. And those of you that like to garden, container gardening is very popular these days. You don't need to do a lot of complicated steps in order to grow veggies. In fact, a couple summers ago when I was home more, I grew kale inside my house. I had like 12 plants, and I got a couple of those full spectrum grow lights, and I had kale all summer, and it would have just kept on going, and very easy to take care of. And you can buy all different kinds of setups of these full spectrum lights, so that's even something to look into. Also check and see if you have a community garden in your neighborhood. Those are great ways to get really fresh produce. Okay, now for some just basic shopping tips. So of course, keeping a list on the refrigerator to keep track of ingredients, buying for a whole week's worth of meals so you're a little bit more efficient and not having to run to the store every day. Nowadays, you can just go to mainstream grocery stores and get everything you need. You no longer just have to go to the store that sometimes we call whole paycheck. And even some of the regular grocery stores are doing really smart things. Like Kroger, in their meat department, they'll have the hamburger, the ground beef, but then next to it they'll have a green sign that stands for the plant-based analog. And also the same with other ingredients too. So if you go to the dairy case or the freezer case, you might see real milk, dairy milk that is, next to plant-based milk. And that's really a good marketing strategy because it will actually encourage people to say, hey, I've heard of this plant-based stuff. Let's try this time. So you don't have to go to these expensive health food stores to find all of these products. That's really good to know. Out here in San Francisco, do you have Aldi? You don't. You have grocery outlet, right? Yeah. You can get lots of really good prices on produce and even vegan items. Buying in bulk, like I buy almonds from a farm in California where the price of the almonds is like half of what you'd get in a store. Also buying produce in season when it's not as expensive. So those are just A couple things. Buying organic. Organic produce means, of course, that they were grown without the use of pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers. As just a general rule, so you don't have to memorize which foods you absolutely need to buy organic, if it's got a thick skin on it, like a cantaloupe, chances are it's okay. You don't have to buy that cantaloupe organic. But all real thin-skinned fruits, especially like berries, apples, white potatoes, cherries, peppers, peaches, pears, those fruits or vegetables that have real thin skins, in general, you want to buy those organic. Avocados and bananas, broccoli and cabbage are usually okay. And there is this resource. Do any of you use the EWG? Yeah, tell us about how you use it. It stands for Environmental Working Group.
So, I feel like I'm talking too much. So
Oh, no, that's good.
every year they come out with the Dirty Dozen. So like when my husband and I like go to like
Yeah.
Costco, like we'll like adhere to that list because just because it says organic doesn't mean it needs to be organic. So I don't want to pay twice the price if I'm going to peel the skin off anyway. But we always go to that list and it changes like ever so slightly.
Yeah, every year.
But
And yeah.
usually berries are on the top of that list. And so I noticed this year that
Yeah.
there were like the top 12, and then there were like
They had to add more?
clean 15
Okay, yeah, they have the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And the Clean 15,
are like pretty much veggies that you don't, fruit and veggies you don't have to worry about.
yeah.
So you just eat them.
Right. So yes?
So the website is ewg.org, but the list is the Dirty Dozen and then the Clean 15.
Yeah, it stands for Environmental Working Group, and they're great because it's not only with food. They list household cleaners and cosmetics, makeup. You can look up a certain foundation that, you would use as makeup, and they rate it according to all the different concerns because of the chemicals. So EWG is a really helpful place. So on your fruits and veggies, especially on fruits, how many of you look at labels? Yeah, so what does the 9 mean when you see that? Yeah, organic, okay? I know it's a little hard to see. It's usually a 5-digit number. If you see an 8, it usually means genetically modified. If you see a 3 or 4 at the beginning of the number, it means it was conventionally grown. And it's fine to buy frozen produce because usually those plants are picked at the time of maximum ripeness. So during the winter when you don't have access to fresh fruit, frozen is perfect. Like I'll throw it into a Vitamix to make a smoothie. The only frozen veggie I found that does not turn out real well when you thaw it out is broccoli. Have any of you had that issue? You have? Yeah, it just kind of turns to mush. But you can get broccoli year round. So canned fruit is fine. Look for the non-BPA label. If there's a lot of salt, you want to rinse it out. Okay, that's pretty easy to do with beans. The reason they put salt in a lot of these canned products is salt makes the environment in the can unfavorable to bacteria, but you can just rinse it out. And by the way, by rinsing beans, you also get rid of a certain compound called, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, probably polysaccharide, which is what causes the gas, So rinsing beans is a good thing. And when you're looking for jams and canned fruits and things, look for unsweetened. When you're looking for juices, look for no sugar added. I even was able to find a cranberry juice the other day that did not have sugar added to it. So as a vegan, you'll find that you just become a real detective as you're looking at all these food labels and learning exactly what they mean. Asian grocery stores, there must be a ton of these here in San Francisco. I don't know if they're necessarily organic. I guess that would be something you'd want to ask. But oftentimes you can find produce that that is a little unusual or off the beaten track, and that can just add to your variety. Like one thing I love to make is a soup, and I fill it with all kinds of healthy greens, some tofu, some shiitake mushrooms, some seaweed for iodine. You can really get creative. And don't worry about blemished produce. I mean, you can, okay, yeah, the banana looks brown. I don't like eating brown stuff. I'm going to throw it in my Vitamix and make it part of a smoothie. But oftentimes, these, they're perfectly safe to eat. So some stores will have specific parts in the produce section for so-called blemished produce. Okay, labels. How many of you read the nutrition fact labels on packages? Yeah. So do you all understand how this works? At the top, it'll tell you how many servings are in a container, the serving size, which could be, in this case, grams, how many calories you get per serving, and then the different nutrients. And these are really important. For total fat, you want to be less than 10. So if for some reason I feel like I want to get those potato chips, I'll look at the fat content. If it's like a 6, it's like, okay, yeah, it's okay. I can splurge this one time and get potato chips. Saturated fat should be 1% or 0%. Sodium, okay. Typically, when you're looking at sodium, because that's a big culprit, anything that's like in the 20s, 20 and above, that's considered high. 5% and below is low, and that's kind of a good guide. Just think 20 and 5. And in terms of fiber, why is fiber so important in our diet? What does it do? Do any of you know? Okay, fiber is fantastic because it actually drags out the toxins and harmful cholesterol. It helps regulate blood sugar. It helps regulate the microbiome, which is the hundreds of trillions of microorganisms that fill our gut and keep us healthy. Fiber is so critically important. It's found in the cellulose, in the cell walls of your plants. And Dr. Greger, you all know Michael Greger, right? Yay! Has he spoken at this Veg Fest? I'm sure he has. But anyway, he says if you're looking at the bread section, right, and you're trying to figure out whether this loaf of bread is really whole grain, he says you look at the label, you take the carbohydrate percentage number and divide it by the fiber number. If it's less than 5, then it's probably whole grain. I see you nodding your head. You know all this stuff. Yeah. So again, you take the carbs and divide it by the fiber. If you come up with a number less than 5, then it's likely whole grain. Whole grain meaning that you're getting the entire grain. When grain is sometimes processed, it removes all the good stuff. I'm not going to go into big detail. Yes?
I would say when you're reading labels, it's good to pay special attention to the serving size.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of people get fooled because the serving size is unrealistic. Because you look and see, oh my gosh, this only has 50 milligrams of sodium or something like that, and then you read the thing, you look at the serving size, and it's 1 tablespoon.
Yeah.
In reality, you probably need half a can.
Right, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so think about your serving size. I want to make a note about oil. Generally, you want to minimize oil because any kind of fat, whether it's plant fat or animal fat, fat is fat. And Dr. Barnard always says, just keep reminding yourself that if you're putting a tablespoon of this salad oil on your salad, that's 120 calories. And Dr. Michael Clapper says, if you're pouring, oil over your food or, salad dressing oil, you're essentially pouring liquid fat on your food. So there are so many ways to make salad dressings. Like the simplest thing I do, if I feel like I want a little liquid on my salad, I drizzle a little balsamic vinegar and squeeze a little orange juice, lime juice, or lemon juice. There's really simple ways you can make up your own salad dressings. So that's one thing to think about. Okay. And this is important. Some products will have coating on them to tell you that the product is vegetarian or vegan. And the thing that's a little problematic, and the same thing goes in restaurants. Okay, how many of you have gone into a restaurant and were confused by the V? Yeah, it's like, does that mean vegetarian? Does it mean vegan? You know, you have to ask because unfortunately it's not uniform. This is one organization that actually originated out here, I think in Berkeley years ago. It's called Vegan Action. And this is the symbol that they use. And it shows up like on a lot of Amy's products and other frozen products and things. And the company currently is based in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm from. So I know the director, and it's always great to see this label. So really get used to your labels. Okay, stocking your vegan kitchen. Of course, you don't have to go out and buy all of this stuff right away, but I sort of came up, and it's a good idea to just keep in mind all the different flours you can get, grains and pasta. You know, explore other grains too, like barley, teff. Teff is the grain that's used to make that wonderful Ethiopian bread called injera. There's a lot of bean pastas out there. Have any of you tried those? They're really, really good. They're just made, it's pasta just made from beans. You know, so if you have a big plate of pasta, you're getting a lot of servings of beans. Yeah, beans and legumes, we already talked about rinsing those out. Fruits and veggies, soy products. Do any of you use tempeh? Tempeh, yeah. Tempeh is also a fermented soy product, and it's actually considered more healthy than tofu because it's less processed and actually has more protein and fiber. Nuts, your nuts and seeds. Other goods I put here. This is all in my new book, which I'm going to tell you about at the end. And other things as well. By the way, how many of you have one of those machines that make plant-based milk? Because I have one that's really great because you throw the almonds and the water in, and that's it. And it even cleans itself. So sometimes in the plant-based milks you buy in the grocery store, some of them have a kind of questionable ingredients that maybe you're not sure about. One of them is vitamin A palmitate. Another one is carrageenan, which I'm not really sure. Did you have something to point? Oh, okay. I'll just scratch it. Yeah. You know, these are just very, I use date syrup a lot because I want to stay away from, of course, you know, your high fructose corn syrup sort of products. Kitchen equipment, kind of go through this quickly. It's kind of the same sorts of equipment you would probably have anyway. I highly recommend a spiralizer if you want to make pasta out of zucchini or potatoes. A food dehydrator if you're doing raw vegan because that will only heat up the food up to a certain level. And a Vitamix is really important. How many of you have a Vitamix? Yeah. Smoothies are so easy to do and a really nutritious thing. Okay, we're going to move a little quicker here. Social challenges. We don't have a whole lot of time to go through these, but I think the most important thing is that if you're talking to someone, it could be friends or family, about going vegan, treat it like a normal conversation, right? You're not trying to prove a point. You're not trying to convert them. You're simply having a discussion where you're hearing and listening to what the other person has to say. And oftentimes, the people that push back against veganism are the very ones who, maybe because they push back, they realize, you know, I really should go vegan. And sometimes they're the ones that a year later you see them and they say, hey, I'm vegan. And I think a really important thing to do is that we vegans serve as a role model. I think that's one of the most powerful ways to advocate for veganism. How many of you vegans have had people come up to you and say, wow, you just have so much energy, you never get sick, how do you do it? How many of you have had that, happen? Yeah. Like I've been in my current job at the University of Richmond for 25 years, and I have never taken a sick day. And people say, how do you keep from getting sick? What do you do to have all that energy? Being a positive example of what veganism can do, and even telling people and say, hey, for me, when I went vegan, I had so much more energy, and I found that I could give more of myself. So that's really, I think, one of the most important things to do. If you're in a social type of situation, it's all about planning ahead. If you're going to meet friends at a restaurant, call the restaurant and say, hey, I noticed you don't have any dishes that are vegan. Can you prepare something special? And sometimes you'll be surprised. Someone will come up, a chef will come up with this amazing dish. Or if it's holiday time, offer to make your own vegan feast and invite people over. So you can find very creative ways to share this important aspect of your life and introduce them to just how wonderful vegan dishes can be. I know we're running a little bit out of time, but nowadays, of course, there are vegan products, whether it's with shoes, with handbags, with clothes, with furniture, shampoos, cosmetic companies. There's so much out there now. Traveling, the #1 site to use is Happy Cow. How many of you use Happy Cow? You can plug in the name of any city in the world and find the names of vegan stores, vegan restaurants, even vegan Airbnbs, vegan hotels. Happy Cow is a tremendous resource. And there are other ones too, like veggie hotels, nomadic, vegan, veg visits, vegan travel. When I travel, oftentimes, I'll try to find a hotel that's close to a grocery store, so I know I'll be able to shop for what I need. Or these companies, these are just a few of them, and others are like Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, where you can order vegan food in a pinch if you had to. The one area that I think is kind of frustrating is airports. How many of you have been in airports and found like close to nothing vegan? Yeah. That can be a problem, so oftentimes you have to plan and bring your own food is what I oftentimes do. I mean, it's kind of a drag when the only thing you can find are the Sabra chip, the little pretzels and the hummus. Of course that has a lot of salt in it, so the airlines, they're behind with things, but of course we know we no longer have meals on domestic flights, but if you're flying international, you need to do some sleuthing, because every airline uses a different designation. Strict vegetarian sometimes means vegan, and you just have to ask and say, what are your different classifications of special meals? So you have to do a little bit of hunting around with that. There are discussion websites, which are super handy. TripAdvisor, Reddit, where people post things about challenges they had while traveling. And then I used to come up with a list of foreign phrases for traveling because I knew I'd be stuck in a restaurant and I would have to point to an item on the menu and ask, is this vegan? Or I don't eat blah, 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 and I'd have the whole list of what I don't eat. But apparently there's something called V-Cards and Vegan Passport that has a listing in different languages of all the questions you would have to ask. Okay, and finally, I have a table out there, and I'm selling copies of my new book, which has been out for a month, half price today. It's called Vegan Made Easy, and it has a lot of the tips we talked about today, and it's also a good book to introduce to others if they're interested in going vegan. So I think that's it for today. Thank you all so much for coming. Great. Yeah, and feel free to come and chat with me at my table. Yeah.